Hi there, welcome back to Taylor's blog. Today we're going to be discussing the immortal life of Henrietta Lacks and some post-colonial archetypes that are within the novel. Hope you enjoy.
Alrighty, so we're going to be starting off with a quote here. "Oh geez, she's a real person." This quote was spoken from Mary, the research assistant from Johns Hopkins University. This quote embodies how impressed and looked down upon Henrietta Lacks, an African American, was throughout the immortal life of Henrietta Lacks. Today I'll be discussing this and many more examples of how post-colonialism is absolutely prevalent throughout the novel The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. Before we get started, I thought I would briefly summarize the novel so you can better understand key concepts and characters that I will be referencing today. The story is told through the eyes of the author, Rebecca Skloot, as she attempts to unravel the mystery of Henrietta Lacks and how her cells contributed to many medical achievements such as the polio vaccine, chemotherapy, cloning, gene mapping in the 1950s. Rebecca talks to many people in order to help solve this mystery, including medical professionals and Henrietta's family. Rebecca notices that Henrietta Lacks' name is missing from many of the people giving credit for these medical achievements, and throughout the book, she unravels the truth behind why Henrietta was never given credit. One example of this is when the book talks about the Tuskegee study that took place between 1932 and 1972. These experiments took poor African American men who had syphilis and attempted to find a cure by studying them. They incentivized these experiments by offering food, free rides, and even $50 towards their funeral costs. This led to the deaths of hundreds of African men that could have been prevented had they given proper care. This was due to the fact that in this era, African Americans were still seen as inferior and their deaths were insignificant to the oppressors. Henrietta Lacks was brought up poor and afraid due to the work of the oppressors. In the 1800s, Henrietta's family, along with other slaves at the time, were told lies about their plantation owners. This quote from the novel shows just how the plantation owners told stories about the doctors who took the black population for experiments. To discourage slaves from meeting or escaping, the slave owners told tales of gruesome research done on black bodies, then covered themselves in white sheets and crept around at night, posing as spirits coming to infect black people with disease or steal them for research. Those sheets eventually gave rise to the white hooded cloaks of the Ku Klux Klan. The overarching theme of the novel is how Henrietta Lacks, or her family, was never given credit for her contribution towards these medical achievements. Rebecca first notices the lack of credit when she finds that Henrietta's name is missing from her parents' encyclopedia. This is actually what sparks her to look into the history behind Henrietta's cells. As she continues her journey into Henrietta's life, she finds that people in the medical field are very hesitant to help her and try to disrupt her research. This is another example of how even after the death of Henrietta, the oppressors are still trying to oppress her by wiping her name out of the history books. They wouldn't want an African American getting the credit for those achievements. Going back to the quote, "Oh geez, she's a real person," this is a prime example of how people in the medical field didn't know Henrietta was an actual person, they just knew her for her cells. The attempt to remove the oppressed group from any positive achievements in the history continues to this day and is clearly shown throughout the novel. In summary, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks is simply filled with post-colonial archetypes, from disturbing experiments to altering history. This book has given me a new perspective on how African Americans still felt the oppression from slavery in America even 100 years after it was abolished. Reading through this novel has left me with a new appreciation of the contributions that African Americans made to better our society and can still be felt to this day. From Henrietta Lacks to Martin Luther King Jr. to the countless other African Americans who have suffered through the after effects of slavery and still managed to make the world around us a better place, thank you very much. Thanks for listening to another Taylor's blog. Have a great day.